Hi everyone, my name is Matilda. My story will seem strange and incomprehensible to you at first because I want to tell you about how I was frozen for 10 years. Who did it? My parents. When I was born, my ancestors were at the height of a successful business, and many journalists, even foreign ones, wrote about them. A young couple blew up the market with a chain of home improvement stores. There was demand everywhere. My mom and dad understood quality and beauty. Year after year, the money poured in like a river. They were happy with their work. As a rule, sacrifices had to be made for success, and that was the time with me. Mom, Dad, today is my concert at school. Will you come? Oh, sorry, honey, today's an important meeting, but I'll send John, our driver, with you. He'll film the whole thing and we'll watch it tonight. No, you won't. Of course we'll watch it. Honey, did you call that partner from Sweden? He asked me to let him know before the meetings about the package. Yes, of course I did. You always remember about work, and I've been preparing for the concert for 2 months. Honey, we have to go. Good luck at the concert. Rock on. Bye, we love you. What do you mean, rock on? I actually play the saxophone there. My parents left, slamming the door, and I lazily finished my breakfast. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I felt so bad that I couldn't straighten up. I ran into the bathroom and sat on the toilet. John was already calling me like we were going to be late for school. I somehow got up and drove to school, but I felt lousy. I stood upon the stage among the other kids. My stomach ache worsened and worsened. And then my part started. The conductor gave the signal for my solo, and I bent in half and couldn't make a sound. John! John! I called somehow to my driver. He came running to me, picked me up, and took me to the hospital. I was ready for treatment, some medication, but not what the doctor said. You have stomach cancer. It's metastasized. Hearing these words was like a ringing in my head. I lay there, terrified. I did not want to believe or accept this information. I immediately called my mother, but she didn't pick up. Neither did my father. John brought me home at my insistence. I waited all day for my folks to get home from work. Oh, hey, honey, how are you doing? How was the concert? Is there a recording? I can't wait to see it. Mom, Dad, I have stage 4 cancer. They went back and forth at first, and then Mom froze up and threw questions at me. My father immediately called the doctor, who confirmed everything. A wild scream and yell came from my mother. Honestly, I was surprised at the reaction. She wanted to buy a ticket and take me to Israel. They almost did, only the next day. All the other days for the next 2 weeks, we flew from one country to the other. At the same time, they took tests everywhere. My hands turned blue because of the endless injections. It was painful and terribly expensive. But I saw that my parents were willing to pay for everything. It's all my fault. I should have spent more time with her. I should have noticed the first symptoms. I should have helped. Don't beat yourself up. We didn't know this could happen. We're both to blame. Our girl, what's going to happen to her now? I can't stand it. I won't survive if... Not if. She'll be all right. But no, I wasn't. My body was already infected. I was in terrible pain. I could hardly eat or walk on my own. The disease progressed too fast. All that was left was to wait, so we were told by the best clinics in the world. In the meantime, I had already resigned myself to the thought, even waited in a way, because I was in pain. Then, in the hallway, a man who looked like a professor came up to us. At first, he sympathized, and then he suggested one thing. It seemed crazy and insane. He said that I could be saved, or rather, my consciousness could be. To do that, my brain would have to be frozen and transplanted into a healthy body. I didn't believe it, but my mother... To her, those words were like a ray of hope. Dad refused, calling it barbaric, and Mom started questioning him. They left for another place. I heard my mother screaming. I don't know what they were talking about, but after a couple of days, I got worse. I remember my parents hugging me, crying. I cried too. And then, that was it. I woke up unexpectedly, feeling unaccustomed, sick, uncomfortable, and terribly thirsty. A friendly female voice greeted me, and they brought me a tube of water and let me take a sip or two. I could not yet speak. I was not thinking how to speak. I fell asleep and woke up. I don't know how much time passed. And then I woke up properly, and I felt better. The first thing I did was move my limbs, and then I looked around the room. It was beautiful and magical. Then my parents came in, only they looked older. They were talking quietly and slowly, crying and smiling, and I still didn't understand what was wrong. Finally, after many days, the tube was removed from my mouth. Mom and Dad came in again, and I was allowed to talk. "Hi, honey, how are you?" "Our darling, how are you feeling?" Okay. Take your time. Everything is okay. We are with you." "Where am I?" "In the hospital. Everything is okay. We will go home soon." A couple of weeks later, I was discharged. I was eating and walking and sitting normally. Sometimes I dreamed fragments of memories, as if from the distant past. I remember being sick, the hospital, the doctor's voices. I saw that our house was different, more modest, and that many of the servants were no longer there. I asked why the house was different and where everything was, and my mother said that the family had a little crisis. They had to invest money somewhere, a lot of money, but everything was fine. I was shown a room, not a suite, but it would do. I saw a closet of clothes, and I wanted to try them on. My favorite dress was still hanging in the closet, but I couldn't put it on. It was too small for me. "That's what I get," I said to myself and walked over to the mirror. I yelled. "Who's that?" I asked, looking in the mirror. This new girl was taller, fatter, had a different body, hair, eye color, acted differently, and in general, it wasn't me. Another girl was looking at me from there, and then my folks said we needed to talk. That's when I realized that something had happened that I was going to have to hear about, sitting in a chair. It turned out that I was dead. My sick body had died of cancer. My parents were killing themselves over it, but my mother had secretly agreed to freeze my healthy brain with that professor. It was a risk, but it couldn't get any worse, as my mother said. Despite the enormous risks and the dubiousness of the procedure, my mother signed the consent, and it took almost the entire family fortune to do it all. Those scientists froze my brain for 10 years and then found a new body and reunited them. The procedure took more than 1 year to complete. Everything was done little by little, step by step. My father didn't believe in it, though. It was bullshit for him, but it worked, as you can see. I was in a coma for a long time, under the scrutiny of the best doctors. Finally, after 5 years, I was fixed and revived. It was difficult for me to absorb all the information at once, so I asked the same questions every day, often forgot things and asked again. But my dad and mom patiently answered everything. In general, I kept everything from me, my taste preferences, food, fashion, music, but my body is different, and it took me a couple of years to get used to it finally. This surgery is actually a great miracle, but it is terribly expensive. My parents paid an impressive amount of money to a girl who was brain dead and whose body I took over. She was 20 years old when she died in a car accident. "Mom, was it all worth it? You gave away almost all your money." "It was worth it. I wouldn't regret a single penny because your life is priceless." "I don't regret it either. We're happy and we were able to give you a second life." "What about business?"
"I'm slowly unwinding it again. It's for the best. I always liked rebranding. Now you're home and I can take care of it. And I'll be home with you. Now I'll devote all my time to you."
"But what about my name? I'm a different person now."
"We got your papers for a different name, a different surname, and it's like you were adopted, so it's okay."
You guys are unbelievable. I had to relearn how to meet people, how to communicate. At first, I was terribly slow, took a long time to think. Also, a lot of crying and getting angry. But the doctor said that it was all normal and that there was no reason to worry. It's been another 5 years since then, and I'm much better now. I got used to the new me. And yes, grateful for a second chance. That doctor is proud of his work. He has become a regular visitor in our home. I'm thankful for him too. All in all, guys, if you don't believe in miracles, they happen. The main thing is to have the money for it. That's all. How would you like a second chance? How would you take advantage of it?
Every girl having flaws in appearance dreams of correcting them. I'm no exception. I really didn't like my nose. It marred my face, distorted all my beauty. All the nose first, then she jokes are about me. My dissatisfaction with the years only accumulated, and then one day I exploded and decided to have plastic surgery. My name is Kat, by the way. Many people now think that I may be too critical of myself, that I have low self-esteem, or I have nothing stupid to do, but this is not the case. Since early childhood, I began to complex this potato on my face. Every time I looked at fashion magazines or music videos, I only paid attention to the nose of models and stars. Have you ever seen Miss Universe have a nose bigger than her face? No. Even in fairy tales, princesses always had everything in proportion. It seems that only my parents admired their daughter's beauty. My mother said I was making it up, but I knew she was calming me down. But no, there was another person, my classmate Jim. He's my best friend and always said I was too fixated on my nose. He was a devoted friend and could find the right words in a bad mood. So, last summer I had a birthday, and closer to this date, my parents asked what gift I would like to get. Well, I didn't hesitate to answer, plastic surgery! Mom and Dad were taken aback. They began to complain that the ugliness of my nose was just a fantasy, and again began to shower meaningless compliments. I was firm in my choice and said that I would still do the operation. After a couple days of persuasion, they agreed. I found a clinic myself. It was one of the best in our city. I made an appointment for a consultation with a doctor, after which I was assigned the day of the operation. I went there with my mother. I was still terribly excited and scared because I had never been on the operating table in my life. The doctor put a mask on my face and told me to count to 10. I fell asleep on the number 7. I remember dreaming that I wake up and see that the doctors made my nose even bigger, even uglier. It's like I come to class and my classmates are laughing at me and everyone has a potato instead of a head. Then I look in the mirror and I see that I also have potatoes. I screamed and woke up in a cold sweat, and my mother immediately began to comfort me. It turns out that I began to recover from the anesthesia, and I imagined all sorts of things. My face was bandaged. It was painful, and terrible edema prevented me from fully moving my face, eating, and talking. Then everything healed well, and finally, when the last bandages were removed, I saw my reflection in the mirror in all its glory. They made me the nose I wanted. The nose, not the nose. Now my face looked feminine and neat, and I felt pretty as hell. I didn't tell anyone about my change except Jim. He was terribly upset, but I didn't care. The operation just fell on summer holidays, so I have enough time to recover more or less and get used to the new image. My classmates were initially offended that I did not communicate with them and generally disappeared for a while, but I wanted to surprise them. After staying at home for a while, the first thing I did was call my friends and ask them to go for a walk. Before that, I dressed up. I felt changes not only outside, but also inside me, so I decided to change the image as well. Finally, everyone will know that I am beautiful and stop laughing at me. That night, I appeared to the girls completely different, a new Kat. Everyone was delighted. I received a lot of compliments, and they were all real, sincere. I wanted to walk and walk so that everyone could see the new me, confident. In general, that evening I had unforgettable emotions. I came home in full ecstasy. I was smiling like never before and still couldn't get enough of my reflection. The next day, Jim came to see me. He's probably the only one who messed it up. He said that I looked better before, that I shouldn't have made such sacrifices for the opinion of spoiled classmates, called me characterless, and left. I couldn't believe. I thought he was my best friend. We were friends for so many years. I always helped him with his studies, was there when it was necessary, and he dares to come to my house and just spoil the mood? Get out of here! If you don't like the new me, you don't have to talk. I really need you after this. You can't even be happy for me like our classmates. I shouted at him. Jim listened to everything and then turned away and started to leave, but said in the end, "You were always beautiful, especially inside yourself. The operation disfigured not only your nose, but all of you. You always cared about the opinions of your spoiled classmates. They don't care about you," he shouted. I hated him for saying that and sent him away. We didn't speak for the rest of the holidays. Then school started, and we met at school. Despite the incident with Jim, I had to be on top, so I dressed up as prettily as possible and came to school. The day before, I imagined walking into the classroom and all eyes would be directed in my direction. It was very exciting. Finally, I will be the most beautiful and my classmates will stop laughing at me. But as soon as I entered, instead of exclamations of admiration, I heard a giggle. My smile disappeared from my face. I didn't understand what was happening or why they were laughing. I was supposed to be the most beautiful. Then the teacher came into the classroom and interrupted my train of thought. At the end of the lesson, I was approached by the same classmates who we met on vacation. They said I would never be one of them.
"You will always be nosy cat to us,"
one of them whispered sarcastically. I was alone again. I couldn't hold back my tears. Hysterical, I went home and locked myself in my room. I was so disappointed, and I don't know who I was most angry at, myself or them. In the evening, Jim came to see me. He said that he saw everything and reminded me again how real I am. I told you you were beautiful inside and out. It doesn't matter if you have an operation. Is it important for what? To become better for yourself or to win the attention of worthless people? He asked. I thought about his words and realized that what really matters is not so much external changes as internal ones. And my life after the operation clearly showed this.